All right, so I'm just going to walk through what the final paper should look like. You're going to have 5 main sections. In addition, you can have a title page. I think you should. This is a big project. It's worth having a title page. I think it deserves that. So, but that's up to you. If you don't want to have a title page, don't. But please do number your pages. And of course, it should have a page of works cited right at the end of the paper. Beyond that, you'll have the introduction, followed by the literature review, the fieldwork description, an analysis and interpretation of your research material, and then the conclusion. So, the introduction. Here, there are a few things that you want to get done. First, you want to identify just the general topic that your paper addresses. So maybe it's the ethics and morality, maybe it's the anthropology of ethics, or maybe it's ethics in everyday life, or maybe you're framing it in some other way. But anyway, you're giving sort of the broad topic into which your paper fits. Next, you're telling the reader the specific point of entry that you're taking into this topic. So it might be ethics with respect to business, or fatherhood, or incarceration, and so on. So, in other words, what you researched in order to learn something about this topic. And then finally, you're narrowing down the focus of your paper in the introduction to a thesis statement. So you want to wind up with a single sentence that states your thesis, right? So you're not saying this is what the paper is about. You're saying this is what the paper claims. This paper argues that. In this paper, I claim that. In this paper, I will show that. Phrase it how you like, but you want to have one very tight statement that says exactly what your thesis is going to be, exactly what your argument is going to be. Next, you get into the literature review. So you know this by now. You need 9 sources. That's including all of the theory readings from the course. And then the rest come from the supplemental readings. Of course, you know that those are available in Brightspace. The Mattingly reading you can use as a supplementary reading if you like. So this is where you lay out the conceptual framework for the rest of the paper, including the analysis you're going to do of your own research material. You have to include at least 1 quotation from each source, so that's going to be a minimum of 9 quotations. You can have more than 1 per source, of course, if you like, if it helps you make the point that you want to make about what that individual source is contributing to the body of scholarship. So that's fine. You can do more than 1 if you like. Of course, include proper citations. And this means not just for quotations, but also where you're paraphrasing what the piece has said in your own words. Also include a citation so that your reader, can go back and find the exact section that you're paraphrasing and then say, oh yeah, that is really what it's saying. Okay, very good. Off we go. So the next section will be a fieldwork description. So here you want to talk about who your interviewees are. Tell your reader what, in this case, he needs to know about your interviewees and about the circumstances of the interview to sort of have a picture of what the field work looked like, what the interviews looked like. And so not just then details about the interviewee, age, gender, occupation, relationship to you, relationship to a specific pastime or a specific role, whatever it may be. Sort of whatever very briefly will give your reader a snapshot of the fieldwork. In this case, you don't want to go on very long about it. You want it to be a paragraph, maybe 2 paragraphs. It doesn't need to be even a full page. Again, you're just trying to kind of immerse your reader in the situation that you were in the interviews, so that they've got this kind of snapshot. Oh yeah, here, as I say, a paragraph. Okay. Now you get to the largest portion of the paper. This is your research. You're talking about your research here. You're not just replicating it though, right? So you're not just reproducing the interviews as they unfolded. You're doing kind of what you were doing in your presentations about them. You're explaining them. You're interpreting what was going on, interpreting what the interviewee said. You're analyzing what the interviews taken together tell you. You're sort of mobilizing that material as evidence for the particular kind of argument that you want to make here. And so this is also going to be where you bring concepts that you've outlined earlier in the paper, in the literature review, into play with the material. Those concepts are how you go about analyzing this interview material. To do that, you don't want to go on and on at length about what any of the sources has to say. You've already done that in the literature review. So you can cite it very economically, very briefly. As Das said above, blah, blah, blah. This echoes the way that my interviewee goes about thinking about how to manage the relationship between, say, what an ethics manual says versus what this interviewee actually feels is right to do in a given situation. So you can be very economical. In this section, you don't need to quote what the sources say. You're welcome to, but you don't have to, because, as I say, you've already done that work up above. But when you're drawing the concepts from the literature review to do the analytical and interpretive work here, it's worth flagging which particular reader, which particular reading, or which particular source you're drawing on in order to mobilize that concept for your analysis. Okay, yeah, and this is what I've just said. Clearly, I've got my animations out of sync. Oh well, anyway, there you go. You can see it all there. Finally, the conclusion. At the start of your conclusion, you should restate your thesis. This paper has shown that, or in this paper I've argued that, in this paper I've demonstrated that, this paper makes the claim that, however you want to phrase it. Start off with the thesis so that, again, your reader is immediately reoriented to what you've been laying out through the course of this whole paper. Expand it out to get at the larger topic that that your research gets to. So how it is that your research on this very tight topic speaks to the larger topic that's at stake, anthropology of ethics, whatever it might be. And then give a nod towards some of the larger implications of your findings. So you're not introducing a new argument here, but and if you look at sort of any of the conclusions of any of the pieces that we've read so far, you'll see that they do this. They point toward the broader implications of this work. Maybe it's for the way that research is done. Maybe it's for the way that we think about ethics, whatever the case may be. So you're not here restricted to what you've demonstrated in the paper. That's your thesis. But you're recognizing the way that your contribution to this larger field of thought has implications that go beyond the paper itself. Okay, so You can think of each of these sections as answering a particular question for the reader. So, the introduction, what's the paper's topic, and where is the paper going? So that as I'm reading, I know what to remain alert to. Secondly, what are the main concepts the reader is going to need in order to follow how you unfold the thesis? Next, the who, where, when, and how questions of your fieldwork, of your interviews. The largest section, the body of the paper, the real meat of the paper. What did the research reveal? How should we understand what your research has shown us? And finally then, what should the reader take away from the paper? And that's it. That's what you need to do. Great. Okay, I hope that helps. Anyway, thanks.